Munish Sharma, a very down-to-earth person from Delhi, has achieved second rank in the IAS exam 2013. He belongs to a middle-class family and his mother is an English teacher. To become an IAS officer was his childhood dream, and he achieved his dream in his second attempt. A postgraduate in management, he was associated with MNCs and was pursuing his corporate career before this achievement. He shares his experience and the strategy with our expert Rajat Kumar Saxena.
What do you think about the change pattern of IAS main exam?
I think the change is always for the good and change is inevitable. One must continuously adapt to changes. I think the fact that optional subjects instead of two, they're just one optional subject, that's a good thing because my optional subject anyway was not in the UPSC list. And GS papers instead of two, there are 4 now, and they have made ethics mandatory. That's a good sign. That's one thing that must be tested, and it is tested across various countries, and in US and France also there are sections where ethics and integrity are tested in written.
When did you start the preparations for IAS main exam?
I prepared for prelims, mains side by side. I did not draw any line. After obviously I had written my prelim exam and I knew that I had a safe score, my preparation became more focused. So after prelims you can say that I started paying more attention.
How did you prepare for the compulsory language paper?
I have always been good with languages, so I did not prepare at all.
What was your optional subject in the IAS main exam?
It was law.
Do you think that the educational background of the candidates has a direct relation in choosing the subject in the IAS main exam?
No, I don't think so. In fact, this year's topper, he is an engineer and management professional by qualification, but he took economics and he scored 294 in that out of 500, which is a good score, very good score. So I don't think so it really matters. You should have an interest in that subject. Even I took law, but I had interest in subjects like philosophy, anthropology. So if you think that after going through the course curriculum, if you feel that that subject makes you read a lot, you can have a natural interest in that, then you should go for that. Per se, my subject was not in the list, biochemistry wasn't in the list, and I think that management is too wide a subject to be taken. Then there were other things like zoology, botany, chemistry, but none of those subjects I had studied till the honors level. So it made no point for me to choose them. Law is a very analytical subject. I've seen people from science and commerce background both doing well in this paper. So you need to play on your strengths, and law worked for me in both the attempts.
What strategy did you adopt to prepare the subject law?
So I read the basics first. Paper 1 is divided into constitutional and international law. If you prepare constitutional law nicely for law paper, it also helps in your GS. And international law, there are so many topics like WTO, TRIPS, TRIMS, which also help in your GS paper. So I read normal books, nothing extraordinary for these papers. I referred to coaching notes, whatever the teachers over there taught us. And for paper 2, for topics like torts in penal code, I referred to again very basic books. For IPC, I went through the Bayer Act and the coaching notes, and for mercantile law and business laws, also I read the bare minimum things. But the focus was more on understanding. Law paper is more about the philosophy of law than just cramming cases, sections and articles.
What was your strategy for IAS mains general studies paper 1?
I focused more on studying NCERTs, and I found them very beautifully written and very nice for the preparation. I did refer to some advanced books also, for instance Vipin Chandra for Modern India and India's freedom struggle. But that was mainly to get the wider perspective, to get the bigger picture. But NCERT books were the base for preparation. For culture portion, there is one book on fine arts by NCERT for class 11th. I found that book also very nice. So everything I did was from NCERT books only.
What was your strategy for general studies paper 2?
For that, I basically referred to newspapers and made short notes. And if at times I did not have time to make notes in written, I would take screenshots on my phone while reading newspaper applications and later on convert them to proper notes. And for the portion on Constitution, I referred to the BEAR Act.
How did you prepare the social justice topics?
I did not do anything special for them. Just at times I did refer to Yojana or Kurukshetra magazine, but I think the questions that were asked, they were quite general.
What was your strategy for General Studies Paper 3?
I think your basics should be right. Since I had teaching experience, I never had really issues with science and tech, biodiversity. My basics were very clear. If you think your basics are not clear, you must go through NCERT books first. Then you should obviously follow newspapers, the page on science which every newspaper carries, and you should, instead of cramming, you should have the habit of analyzing, asking whys instead of just what, where and when.
How did you prepare the disaster management topics?
I referred to some notes by IGNOU, I guess, which were freely available on eGyan Kosh. They were quite good.
What was your strategy for ethics paper?
UPSC had released a sample paper before the exam, so I just practiced writing that paper and got it checked from my teachers. Apart from that, you can go through basic readings. There's no dearth of material on paper 4, but what is more important is even if you're reading 40 pages, are you understanding them? So material on IGNOU website, I think eGyan Kosh, that is more than enough.
How answer writing practice helps in IAS main exam?
It certainly does. You should know how to budget your time, how to write in a way that it appeals to the examiner. So you should practice answer writing, most probably.
What aspects one should highlight while writing the answers in the IAS main exam? Because the number of questions has increased and the space is limited.
I think the space is good enough for a 10 marks question, 250 words. They give you 2.5 pages, which is more than enough. Even if your font of writing is comparatively bigger, the space is good enough. You should have this calculation in your mind that you will have 6 or 7 minutes to write one question. So you should approach it accordingly. You may know some questions very well, but do not spend 10 to 15 minutes writing them. Otherwise, your other questions would suffer. So try to write as clearly and precisely as possible. Do not make up stories. Do not bluff, because the people who check your exam questions, they're experienced enough to tell chalk from cheese.
How did you manage time in each general studies paper?
In first paper, I missed on geography, exactly because though I had an inkling that paper would be lengthy, because in IFOS exam there were similar papers. So teachers that are at my coaching, they had warned in advance that the papers could be lengthy. But still, I could not finish my paper 1. I missed on geography questions. I just wrote points in them. I could not attempt them as well as I attempted history. So after that, I acclimatized and attempted other papers well. I just mechanically divided time for each and every question. There were a few questions where the time went up than the one I had fixed, but then I made up for that by taking lesser time in other questions.
How did you maintain balance between the various papers of general studies?
In terms of preparation?
Yeah.
I think I prepared very less for paper 4, and paper 3 could be managed by reading newspapers. Paper 1 is something which requires you to read a lot on traditional topics. Paper 2-3 can be managed by reading newspapers well.
What was your strategy for essay paper?
I focused more on writing clearly and writing coherently. I was actually expecting more marks in essay, but now through my experience, I know that you should not try to use very articulate or flowery language. But that's my nature, that's my second nature. I cannot help writing in that way. But if you can write clearly in a simple language in short sentences, it works. It has worked for my friends.
What tips would you like to give for essay writing?
Again, I would say that use simple language, short sentences, do not make up numbers and figures on your own. Many people say that you should use diagrams or paragraph headings in the essay. There's no crystal clear rule for that. I've seen people writing sentences such as now we proceed to this. They use sentences like that and get good marks in essay. So they are looking for your analytical abilities in essay. Do not choose a topic just because you think that you can give an out-of-box reply for that. Last year I had wrote on science and religion, are they compatible? I got 113 on 200 in that paper. This year I chose on Gandhiji and I got 130 out of 250. But I know people who have got better marks than me, and from their writing style, since I have observed their writing style closely, and from their marks, I can tell you that you should approach the essay in a very purposive way. For instance, if you are writing on a topic of deforestation, you should think of it as a story, as a movie. You should build on it properly. You should not be very repetitive while writing. In a 3 hours paper on essay, it may be wise enough to spend half an hour or 45 minutes on jotting down points and to arrange them instead of straight away picking up your pen and started writing. Then you may end up repeating many things. This year I think you may have multiple essays as well, because in the notification they have used the word essays.
On what aspects the candidate should focus while preparing the essay paper?
I think there's no one thing you can focus on. You should just broaden your horizons. You should read a lot. The more you know, the better you will be able to do in the essay paper.
What suggestions would you like to give for the IS main exam?
I would say that preparation for mains is slightly different from prelims. In prelims, since the pattern is objective, you may tell that how much marks you are going to get. You know, there can be a slight deviation, but on an average you would know how you are going to do. In mains, that may not be the case. So it would make a lot of sense if you could practice answer writing and get that checked through people, or ask for suggestions from your friends. There are online websites also where where questions are given every day and people write their answers and people indulge in discussions. So maybe you could use that. So for mains, the preparation needs to be more holistic and comprehensive.